Safety inspector needs her fun time. Welcome back to the Pit Stop Ranch. Now, one of the big hurdles and the long march to getting the old pale horse here back on the road is the fact that the clutch does not fully disengage. In order to shift into first or reverse, it actually has to turn, you have to turn the engine off. So, having looked at what we can see on this system, it is pretty, there's no adjustability outside of the automatically ratcheting system. And according to the internet, and actually talking with a few experts on these cars, came to the decision that the problem's probably the automatic ratcheting system under the dash, which comprises of a couple plastic parts, has undoubtedly failed. It's not properly tensioning, automatically tensioning the clutch cable, and therefore the problem is that. What we are going to do today is we picked up a brand new clutch cable and clutch cable adjustment system, which isn't automatic. You have to sit there and fine tune it yourself, but it's accessible from either under the car for gross adjustments, major adjustments, and then fine tuning via a knob under the hood. The BBK adjustable clutch cable and quadrant kit. We're covering how to install this, the issues we might run into, and understanding how to do it. Okay, we are having issues with the clutch cable adjustment on the pale horse. The mechanism on there has a lot of plastic in it. 40-year-old plastic, 35-year-old plastic, notoriously brittle. Without a doubt, it's failed. So that's the reason why we can't get it to work. So we bought this kit. The fine folks, BBK, and a Mustang specialty shop I forget the name of, were kind enough to sell this to us for full price. And so this is kind of what comes in the box. We'd already opened, so this isn't a surprise. You got this nice piece here, pretty CNC milled aluminum that is pretty much the cornerstone of it. It's what is gonna, this replaces basically the plastic piece. Now the plastic piece was the adjuster, and so this setup here, this cable setup here, has multiple adjusters in effect. First off is this one here, which goes onto the firewall. The other one being on the other end of the cable, you got the threaded section. There you can lock it down. Now, because we have this bulkhead fitting needs to be removed. And so we'll go ahead and remove that real quick, and then it'll all be ready to install, and we'll show you the installation. Okay. Now this is set up so that this is cable setup is for this being the only adjustable end, but by doing this, it's a little more accessible and you can adjust it without having to crawl underneath. So you do set your base adjustment with this screwed all the way in, and then when you're ready, you can tighten it up by moving that. Now this doesn't have a lockdown on it, which is kind of interesting, but anyways. Comes off, and it goes on thusly. like that. And then that goes through the hole in the firewall. Now this gets screwed in to the same holes that those go into. So anyways, I'll show you the insulation next. Alright, so the first step is to remove the dust cover from the side of the bell housing that covers up where the cable goes to the pivot fork. And once that's out of the way, which we'd already done, trying to figure out if there was adjusters on this, you then just unclip the end of the cable from the pivot fork and then disconnect it from the cable hold down, tie down underneath the car, and it just flops out of the way. It's pretty straightforward. It just has a simple clip holding it in place down there. With it disconnected from the bottom, there is a cable routing bracket which keeps the cable from flopping against a hot exhaust manifold and melting and stopping to function properly. So you got to unbolt that from there on the inner fender well, and so that it is free. With the cable free from the bracket on the inner fender well, you then unbolt it from the bulkhead fitting from the firewall. We are not small. We're on the larger side, if you hadn't noticed. Furthermore, we're not exactly young nor spry anymore. And an old hand whom we consulted on this project suggested strongly that removing the driver's seat was the best bet to be able to snake your way underneath the dashboard and the steering wheel. Might even be worthwhile to pull the steering wheel, but we were trying to keep from quite going that far. In retrospect, it probably would have helped, because it is a snug under that dashboard. With the driver's seat free, we can now pull it out of the way, unbolted, and set it aside. Possibly even considered taking it up to maybe getting some upholstery repaired, but we didn't get to that. And now, with the seat out of the way, the position can be assumed. From this point here, the next step is to unhook the cable from inside from the stock quadrant and ratcheting system, and then finish snaking it through the firewall. This process is time consuming and uncomfortable, and actually took considerably longer than we'd hoped. How's it going?
Oh, the underbelly is quite a bit more difficult than I had imagined.
Both of us ended up assuming various different positions in attempts to work all the bits and pieces out. Okay, these are the parts that we pulled out, and this one was misinstalled. It's supposed to be like this. This part here was supposed to be like this, so that it ratchets up onto the cable that runs through here. And that's the core of our problem. We were under the impression that this was going to be was super brittle and was going to be a fight to get out, or a fight. It was going to come out relatively easy, excuse me. But it has been a fight because it isn't as brittle as we thought it was, because it just busted off. That said, we're still proceeding with installing everything the way it should be. Now I'm going to show you our works environment, our workspace up underneath here, and the instructions are for an SN95, not a Fox body, because SN95 got a lot more room in here to work. But that is part of where it needs to go. So it is super tight in here. I mean, super frickin' tight in here. Anyway, so you see, with the old parts out of the way, next step is to finish sliding the cable in through the given opening and tightening up the bulkhead fitting. And once it's fed through the firewall and brought up snug, the next step is to go ahead and then slip in the new quadrant over the two studs on the actual pedal assembly itself, and then hook the cable up. It is not a trivial, simple process. And after everything is done, then the final step is to go ahead and do the gross adjustment on the pedal. And now the all-important test drive around the block. If you noticed, I'm able to shift and go from gears quite easily as we motor about the neighborhood and achieve our initial goal. Got it installed, and now we can go for drives around the block. Take a little fine tuning to get the engagement point just where we want it, but that's just fiddly little detail stuff and really personal preference. So I'd say the biggest issues with installing this system is the absolute lack of space under the dash, which, you know, BBK did a marvelous job. They got a good system, and it's entirely because of just how relatively small and compact this vehicle is. There is very little room to work. This is a interesting study in packaging. So I blame that on Ford. It's your fault, Henry Ford, the ghost thereof. Anyway. My only observation on the kit itself is the instructions is entirely on YouTube. The kit comes with a little piece of paper with the little code thing you're supposed to scan with your phone, and then that sends you to their YouTube channel and the appropriate video to then watch the installation process. This presumes good Wi-Fi where you're at and so forth. So there are no actual paper instructions. Now, since for the vast majority of us, it's probably admission of the reality of the people who use this, because to be fair, in all likelihoods, most of us will only consult the instructions once we've already messed up. Furthermore, we're more inclined to go to YouTube to see someone else mess up as well than we are to actually read from beginning to end the instructions. So it's probably more of an acknowledgement of us, the consumers of the product, than the actual company itself. It's in, it works great, happy with it. Now if we could just get the damn thing to idle worth a damn. So next step is we're going to go through and we're going to try and set a baseline. We're going to eliminate a bunch of little things that could be contributing to it not running properly, and hopefully we can get it so it stops randomly stalling. And that'll be the next video on Pale Horse whenever we get it out. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. If you want to support us, hit the like button. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. And until next time, have a clutch-tastic day.